What if I told you that the person sleeping next to you every night could be planning your financial destruction? That the loving words whispered in your ear were just a smokescreen for the biggest betrayal of your life? Today, I'm sharing Caroline's story. A woman who discovered her fairy tale marriage was actually a carefully orchestrated nightmare. But here's the twist. She turned the tables in a way that will leave you speechless. My name is Caroline Whitman, and until recently I believed I was living the perfect life. Picture this, a successful 38-year-old author, living in a stunning Manhattan brownstone with Mark, my husband of several years. He was a financial consultant with a voice that could melt away stress and a way of making me feel like the center of his universe. Every single morning began with a gentle kiss on my forehead and perfectly brewed coffee. Every evening ended with him whispering those 3 words that made my heart skip. You're my world. I believed every word. I trusted completely. And that trust almost cost me everything. It was nearly midnight when everything changed. I woke up to an empty bed. Not unusual, I thought. Mark sometimes worked late or grabbed midnight snacks. But then I heard it. His voice, coming from his home office. Low, serious, calculated. She still doesn't suspect anything, he said. The air in our bedroom suddenly felt suffocating. My heart started pounding like a war drum in my chest. I sat up, straining to hear more. Everything's going as planned. Almost done. Those words hit me like a physical blow. I tiptoed to the hallway, pressing myself against the wall near his office door. A thin line of light escaped through the crack, and though I could barely make out the rest of the conversation, I had heard enough. When Mark slipped back into bed minutes later, acting like nothing had happened, I lay there pretending to sleep while my world crumbled around me. That night, I stared at the ceiling until dawn, my mind racing with one terrifying realization: my husband was hiding something massive, and I was the target. The next morning, I moved through our kitchen like a ghost. Mark was still sleeping, his breathing peaceful and steady, completely unaware that I had discovered his secret. For years, I had never once checked our finances. Mark handled everything: bills, savings, investments. I thought that made me a good wife. I was about to learn it made me vulnerable. With trembling hands, I opened our banking app for the first time in years. What I saw made my knees buckle. Transaction after transaction flashed across the screen. $500. Here, $1,000. There, $750. $2,000. Dozens of withdrawals over the past 3 months. Individually, they seemed manageable. Together, they painted a picture of systematic financial manipulation. When Mark found me at the counter, coffee cup shaking in my hands, his casual tone couldn't hide the flicker of panic in his eyes. Checking the account this early? He asked, leaning against the doorway. Just being curious, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. Some of these charges look unfamiliar. His practiced smile was answer enough. Oh, those are just small investments. Must have forgotten to mention them. He couldn't even look me in the eyes. That night, everything changed again. For the first time in our marriage, Mark left his phone on the dining table when he went to shower. That phone was usually attached to him like a vital organ. I stared at it, my heart hammering against my ribs. 30 seconds passed, then 60. The sound of running water upstairs gave me the courage I needed. His phone was unlocked. I scrolled through recent messages, work stuff, casual conversations, nothing alarming. Then I found it, a message thread with no contact name, just a number. The most recent message made my blood run cold. Send her the Ilium files. Just make sure she stays in the dark. Almost done. I read it again and again. Make sure she stays in the dark. There was no question who she was. I was the target of whatever scheme my husband was orchestrating. I placed the phone back exactly where he'd left it, walked to the kitchen, and splashed cold water on my face. The woman looking back at me in the reflection wasn't the naive wife I'd been that morning. She was someone who finally understood that trust without verification is just another word for foolishness. The next morning, as soon as Mark left for work, I made the most important phone call of my life. Anna Prescott wasn't just my college best friend. She was a brilliant estate attorney. We'd reconnected the previous summer, and I never imagined I'd be calling her in crisis mode. When I told her everything, the late-night whispers, the hidden transactions, the mysterious message about Ilium files, she listened without interruption. When I finished, she asked just one question: How much money are we talking about? Close to 500,000, I whispered. There was a pause that felt like an eternity. Then her voice came back, firm and decisive. Caroline, we need to move your assets, now. My knees gave out, and I sank onto the couch. Are you sure? Yes. If you wait, he'll make his move, and you'll lose everything. We'll create a trust in your name, legally protected. He won't be able to touch a single dime. The apartment, my savings, book royalties, investments, everything I'd worked for my entire adult life was on the line. I'm in, I said. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of documents, signatures, and frantic phone calls. Anna worked like a woman possessed, bringing in her entire team. We moved the apartment title into an ironclad trust, locked down every investment account, and shifted every asset under my personal legal protection. By the time Mark walked through our door on the third evening, carrying takeout and wearing his usual charming smile, everything had changed. Thought we'd have Thai tonight, he said cheerfully. I nodded and took the bag, watching him carefully. He had absolutely no idea that while he'd been planning my destruction, I'd been building an impenetrable fortress around everything that mattered. The papers were signed, the money was moved, the trap was set. Let him make his next move. I was ready. 4 days later, Mark played his hand. He came home early on a Friday evening, dressed in one of his most expensive tailored suits. There was something different about his demeanor. He looked calm, almost smug, as he set his briefcase down and sat across from me at our dining table. We need to talk, he said, sliding a manila folder toward me. I didn't flinch. I opened it slowly, revealing the documents inside, divorce papers. I think it's for the best, he continued, his voice sounding rehearsed, practiced. We've grown apart. I don't want things to become more painful than they need to be. I looked up at him, keeping my expression completely neutral. Really? For just a second, barely a heartbeat, I saw uncertainty flicker behind his eyes. Then he nodded confidently. Yes, it's better this way. I took a slow, deliberate breath and slid the folder back toward him. Before we go any further, I said calmly, there's something you should know. His eyebrows drew together. What? I leaned forward slightly, my voice steady and crystal clear. I've already moved everything. He blinked hard. What? The apartment, the accounts, the royalties, all of it. It's in a protected trust now. I paused, letting the words sink in. You can't touch any of it. The color drained from his face like water from a broken dam. What do you mean? I said, my tone remaining perfectly level. You don't get to walk in here, hand me divorce papers, and walk away with half of my life. His jaw tightened. His hand clenched around the edge of the folder so hard his knuckles went white. You can't do that. I already did. I thought that would be the end of it. I was devastatingly wrong. 3 days after Mark stormed out of our apartment, I noticed something sinister happening at work. Whispers in hallways, sideways glances from colleagues who usually greeted me warmly, people suddenly avoiding eye contact. This wasn't paranoia. It was too deliberate to consistent. Then my assistant Rachel walked into my office, her face pale as paper, holding a printout that would change everything. I think you need to see this, she said quietly. It was a screenshot from an anonymous online forum. The post title made my stomach drop. CFO hides funds during divorce using company money. Underneath was a paragraph accusing an unnamed executive of embezzling funds to protect herself in a divorce, implying serious criminal activity. In the comments, someone had made it personal and specific. I know who it is. Caroline Whitman. Look into her. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Mark wasn't just trying to take my money. He was trying to destroy my reputation, my career, everything I'd built over decades of hard work. He's trying to ruin me, I whispered to Rachel. She nodded grimly. If this spreads, it could destroy everything, I finished. Get Anna on the phone, now. That evening, I sat across from Anna in her office, my voice shaking with a combination of terror and pure rage as I explained what was happening. This isn't personal anymore, I said. He's trying to obliterate me professionally. Anna leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. He's playing the dirtiest game possible. He wants to scare you into giving up everything. I looked her dead in the eye. I'm not backing down, she nodded, already reaching for her laptop. First step, cease and desist. If he pushes this further, we'll sue for defamation and reputational harm. A small flame of hope ignited in my chest. Mark wanted to break me with lies, but he'd underestimated one crucial thing. I wasn't afraid of the truth. Just when I thought I'd seen the depths of Mark's cruelty, he found a way to go even lower. 3 days later, Anna called me into her office. Her tone was clipped, serious, and filled with barely controlled anger. "He just filed a lawsuit," she said as I walked in. "He's accusing you of financial fraud." My heart sank into my stomach. "What?" "He claims you illegally moved marital assets. He's alleging you embezzled funds from your joint accounts." Anna's face was grim as she continued. "And there's more." She slid a thick file across her desk. "He's not doing this alone. He filed with a co-plaintiff." I opened the folder, and the name hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Ilium Enterprises. The same name from the mysterious text message I'd seen on Mark's phone weeks earlier. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Anna's expression hardened. "A known fraudster. He's been linked to multiple cases involving forged documents. No convictions yet, but a long trail of suspicion and destruction." I flipped through the documents with growing horror. They were incredibly detailed, filled with fake numbers and fabricated transactions. Some even had what appeared to be my signatures I had never made. "These aren't mine," I said, my voice rising with indignation. "These are complete fabrications," Anna nodded. "We know that, but now we have to prove it, and we have to do it fast." My hands clenched into fists. All the fear I'd been carrying suddenly transformed into something much more powerful, pure, focused determination. "Then let's make sure these lies collapse." "On top of him," I said, and I handed the entire file over to a forensic finance expert. For the next week, we worked around the clock, gathering real transaction records, tracing digital footprints, verifying every single financial move I'd made over the past 2 years. I barely slept. I lived on coffee and adrenaline, but I kept pushing forward, because this battle had evolved into something bigger than money. This was about my integrity, my reputation, and my fundamental right to defend what was rightfully mine. By the end of that grueling week, we had built an airtight case. The expert had traced every single forged document back to Ilium's operation. The dates didn't match real records. The signatures were demonstrably fake. Most importantly, there was absolutely no legitimate paper trail connecting those fabricated transactions to any of my actual accounts. Mark had thrown everything he had at me: lies, manipulation, character assassination, and outright fraud. But the truth was stronger than all of it combined. A month later, we walked into that courtroom, ready for war. Anna was calm and laser-focused beside me. I sat with my shoulders back and my hands steady, dressed in navy blue, professional, confident, unbreakable. Across the room, Mark looked like a shadow of the man I'd once thought I knew. He appeared angry, twitchy, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. The judge reviewed our case carefully. Our documentation was absolutely bulletproof. Ilium, Mark's co-conspirator, never even bothered to show up to defend the lies they'd helped create. When the ruling was read aloud, I closed my eyes. Not out of relief, but out of finality. The court completely dismissed Mark's fraudulent claims. He was denied access to any part of my protected trust. His defamation tactics had backfired spectacularly, and instead of winning anything, he was ordered to cover all of my substantial legal fees. After the hearing, he tried to approach me in the hallway one last time. "You didn't have to do this," he said, his voice low and defeated. I looked him straight in the eye for what I knew would be the final time. "No, Mark, you didn't have to do this." Then I walked away. For good. In the weeks that followed, I slowly picked up the pieces of my life. I returned to writing with a passion I hadn't felt in years. I took long, healing walks through Central Park. I let quiet replace chaos, and peace replace constant vigilance. I didn't celebrate my victory. I reflected on it. Because sometimes victory doesn't feel like joy. Sometimes it just feels like the absence of fear. Sometimes it's simply the quiet knowledge that you refuse to be broken. But I learned something through this entire nightmare. Something I believe every person should know. Trust is a beautiful gift, but control over your own life is a fundamental right. No matter how loving someone seems, never hand over your power blindly. Know your worth. Protect your future. Be willing to act before it's too late. And if someone ever tries to destroy you through betrayal and lies, remember this: stand firm, let the truth speak louder than their deception, and never underestimate the power of preparation. If you're Still with me? Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever felt manipulated, betrayed, or underestimated, I want you to know you're not alone. Hit that like button. If this story moved you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more real stories about overcoming life's biggest challenges. And leave a comment below. Tell me about a time you had to stand up for yourself, or share advice for others who might be facing similar situations. Because here's what I've learned: strength isn't just about surviving the storm, it's about learning to own the sky afterward. Remember, you're stronger than you think, smarter than they assume, and more capable than anyone gives you credit for. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this story of triumph over betrayal, you'll love my video about 5 warning signs your partner is hiding money from you. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a story of strength, survival, and victory. Until next time, keep fighting for what's yours.